He made his choice in front of everyone. I made mine in silence. I have had 3 months to decide which of us was the coward, and the honest answer is that I still cannot tell you. Only that one of us walked off that dais with a crown, and the other walked out a side door into the dark, and for a long while I let the whole world believe that meant he had won. But I am ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the hall, because you should see it the way I saw it. From the back, where they put people like me. I was the healer. Not a noble healer with a name worth saying, just a border pack girl with quick hands who had been brought up to the high hold to learn the deep arts from the king's physicians, and who at 23 had set more bones than I had worn good dresses. I was standing among the servants and the minor folk, in a borrowed grey cloak, watching the bonding ceremony of the man whose wolf had chosen me 4 months earlier in a quiet stillroom, when he thought no one in the world was looking. I want to be careful how I say this part, because it is the part everyone gets wrong. The bond is not a feeling. The bards make it a feeling, all moonlight and trembling, and it is nothing like that. The bond is a fact, sudden and total, like the floor of a frozen river giving way. 4 months before that ceremony, Sorin of the Iron Territories had come into the lower stillroom to have a training wound seen to, and his wolf had risen up behind his eyes and looked at me. And we had both gone very still. Because there is no mistaking it, and there is no undoing it, and we both knew in the same breath exactly what we were to each other. He was the most powerful wolf alive. I changed dressings and ground willow bark. The bond does not consult the hierarchy. That is rather the whole problem with it. For 4 months, we did the careful, foolish, hopeful things people do. He took the long corridor past the stillroom. I learnt the sound of his step. He never once said my name where anyone could hear it, Marin. He said it only in the dark. Only to me, like a word he was rationing. And I thought that was tenderness. I thought the carefulness was tenderness. I know better now. The carefulness was fear. And the fear was older than me. And it was right. Then, there was a border war that did not happen. An alliance that had to. And one morning the bells rang to announce that the king would take a mate at the turn of the moon, the Lady Ingrid of the Hollow Reach, whose father commanded the only army large enough to keep the eastern packs from each other's throats. And I stood in the stillroom, with the bell going through me like a blade, and a second piece of news I had been carrying for 9 days, sitting low and certain under my ribs, that I had come up the tower stair that very morning to tell him. I never told him. You have already guessed what it was. I will get to it. So there I was, at the back of the great hall, in a grey cloak, and there he was on the dice, and Lady Ingrid stood beside him in white and silver, looking like winter decided to wear a crown. Here is what no one else in that hall was watching for, and what I have turned over every night since. His hand shook. The king's hand, that I had watched hold a blade steady through a man's whole challenge without a tremor, shook when he raised it. He said the binding words like a man reading his own sentence off a page. And not once in the whole ceremony, did he let his eyes travel to the back of the hall, where he knew. Because the bond always knows. Exactly where I was standing. I told myself that was shame. I told myself he could not look at me, because he had chosen the crown over his own wolf, and could not bear the proof of it standing there in borrowed grey. That is the story I left with. That is the story I believed for 3 months. He set his mark upon her, before all the packs. I felt the bond between us. My bond, the real one, the one that does not lie. Go dark, the way a room goes dark when the lamp is carried out of it. There is no pain like a true bond being walked away from while you stand still and let it happen. I have set bones jutting through skin. It is not the same country as that. I did not make a sound. I want that noted. In a hall of wolves, who would have smelled my grief like smoke if I had let it catch. I held it down with both hands, and I did not make a sound. And when the feasting began, and no one was looking at the healer in the grey cloak, I walked out a side door into the dark. That night, from the yard, I looked up at the North Tower, out of an old habit, because he kept a lamp burning in that window. Always, every night, I had been at the hold. That one window held a light when all the others went dark, and once I had asked him why, and he had only said, "So the dark has somewhere to stop," and changed the subject the way he changed every subject that had teeth. The north window was dark that night. He had put his own light out. I told myself that was guilt too. Then I put my hand flat against the low certain weight beneath my ribs. The 9 days' news. The thing I had climbed the tower to tell him, and would now never tell him. And I made my choice in the silence he had taught me to keep. I was carrying the king's child, his heir, by every law of the pack, and a fated mate's child, born to a king already bound to another woman whose whole future depended on her own line sitting that throne, is not a blessing. It is a death sentence with a heartbeat. If I stayed, Ingrid would learn of it inside a month, and one of us would not survive the learning, and it would not be her. So I took the coward's road, or the brave one. I have told you I cannot tell which, and before the moon was down I was gone from the high hold and walking south, one hand on the weight under my ribs, telling the only thing in the world that was still entirely mine, that I would keep it if it cost me everything I had left, which I had just been reminded was not very much. I went to the marsh country, to Greywater, the half-drowned border holdfast where I was born, and where the king's writ runs thin, and the king's bride had never heard of anyone. I told them my man had died at the border. In a manner of speaking he had. And I built a life out of the only thing I have ever been good for. I healed people. I set the marsh folks' bones and broke their fevers, and brought their pups into the world in the grey hours, and the holdfast that had nothing to spare made room for the healer and her growing belly. Because a place that has nothing learns the value of a woman who can keep its children breathing. There was a pup there, an orphan, 6 years old, mother taken by the wasting one winter, and father gone into the marsh after her and not come out. Wild as weather, that child, biting and silent, and for reasons known only to herself, she decided I was hers. She slept across my threshold like a guard dog. She put her small fierce hand on my belly and informed me, with the flat certainty of the very young, that the baby was going to be hers to mind. I did not argue. I had stopped arguing with anyone who wanted to love me. The supply had run thin. I tell you about her because she is the first one who taught me the thing it took me 3 months and a near death to learn. That being chosen in front of a crowd is not the only kind of being chosen, that some of the realest claims in this world are made in silence, by people with nothing, who simply decide you are theirs and lie down across your door. But I am getting tender, and you did not come here for me to get tender 3 months early. Let me say one plain thing, and then we will go back to the trouble. Because the trouble was coming for me on a fast horse, and it was about to find me. If you have ever loved someone who chose the safe thing over the true thing and left you to carry the cost alone, stay with me, because I promise you this story does not end where you think it does, and I would not blame you for not believing that yet. And if a woman who refuses to be written out of her own ending is a thing you want to follow, then follow along, because I am only getting started, and so is he. Now, the fast horse. It was Gunnar who found me. The king's second, a great grizzled wolf of a man who had stood at Soren's shoulder since they were boys, who had looked, at the ceremony, like a man at a funeral. He came alone, mud to the thigh, having spent the better part of 3 months quietly searching every border holdfast a healer might run to, against his king's orders. Because his king had given no such orders. Because his king by then was past giving orders at all. He found me in the birthing shed with another woman's newborn still warm in my arms, and he saw the shape of me under my apron, and I watched the whole truth arrive in his face at once and nearly take his knees out. "Gods," he said. "Gods. Girl, you're carrying it. You left carrying it. You will lower your voice," I told him, very calm, the way you tell a panicking man to lower his voice. "And you will not say one more word in front of the child." He lowered his voice. He was shaking. This enormous man who had killed in 3 border wars stood in a marsh birthing shed and shook. "He's dying, Marin." He had never said my name before. I did not know he knew it. The king, the marking, it never sealed. A mark laid over a true bond doesn't take. It just bleeds. His wolf has been bleeding out for 3 months, looking for a bond that walked south in a grey cloak. He doesn't eat. He doesn't shift. Or he shifts and can't come back right. The healers have run out of words. Ingrid keeps him behind a door and tells the packs he's in seclusion. And the packs are starting to whisper, and the Eastern Lords are starting to count his warriors, and when he goes, and he is going, the Hollow Reach takes the throne through her, and there will be a war that drowns this whole coast. And you." He stopped. He looked at my apron again, like it was the dawn. "You're carrying the only thing that could stop all of it." "And you ran." I ran. I agreed, to keep this child alive, from a court that would have killed it in the cradle to protect her line. Do not stand in my shed and make my silence sound like cowardice, Gunnar. I am the only one in this story who has protected anyone. And he did the thing that undid me. This huge old soldier looked at me with tears cutting clean lines through the mud on his face. And he said, "He marked her to save you." The shed went very quiet. The newborn made a small sound against my arm. "What? You don't know?" He pressed the heels of his hands to his eyes. "Of course you don't know. How would you know? You were standing in the back in that cloak thinking he sold you for an army." "Marin, Halston of the Hollow Reach, found out about the bond. About you. He came to Soren a fortnight before that ceremony, and he laid it out plain. Mark, my daughter and I keep the East at peace, or refuse, and I will put it about that the king has taken a low-born border witch to mate, and your enemies will not come for you, they will come for her, and there will be an accident on a marsh road, and you will never be able to prove it was me. He had your name. He had Greywater. He had it all." He dropped his hands. "Soren came to me that night, and he was grey as ash, and he said, 'Gunnar, if I claim her, I kill her, and if I keep my light burning in that window, she'll see it, and come up that stair, and I will not have the strength to send her away again.' And the next night, the lamp in the north window went dark, and the morning after that, he marked Ingrid, and he has not spoken a full sentence to a living soul since, and I have watched my best friend choose to die slowly, so that a healer in the marshes could grow old, not knowing she was ever in danger." He looked at me. He doesn't know about the child. He thinks he saved one life. He thinks that's the one good thing left in him. I have been asked since what I felt. Standing in that shed, people always want the feeling. I will tell you what I did instead, because that is truer. I handed the newborn back to her mother. I untied my apron. I asked Gunnar how fast his horse was, and whether it would carry 2, and when he said it would carry 2, but that I should not, in my condition, ride hard for 3 days. I told him that I had been carrying his king's heir through a marsh winter, while his king played dead behind a door, and that I would decide what my condition could carry, and to saddle the horse. The orphan pup rode the first mile clinging to my leg before I made her let go. She did not cry. She put her fierce, small hand on my belly one last time and told the baby to come back. And then she stood in the road and watched us out of sight. And if you want to know, the moment I stopped being the woman who left in silence, it was that one. I was done being left, and I was done leaving. I was going to go and stand in the front of the hall this time, where they do not put people like me. And I was going to make every wolf in it look at what their king's silence had cost. The high hold, when we reached it, smelled of sickness and waiting. A keep takes its weather from its king, and its king was dying, and you could feel the cold of it in the stones. Ingrid met us in the great hall. Of course she did. She had spies on the road, and she was not a fool, whatever else she was. She had grown thin too. But hers was the thinness of a woman holding a winning hand and afraid to set it down. She looked at me, and then her eyes went to the unmistakable shape of me, and I watched her do the same arithmetic Gunnar had done, and arrive at a far colder sum. "The border witch," she said to the hall, lightly, so the watching servants would carry it, come crawling back heavy with some marshman's by blow, to claim it's the king's and bleed the throne. "We have laws for women like you." She smiled. "I almost admire the timing. He cannot exactly deny you while he sleeps, can he? I have not claimed anything yet, my lady. You did all of that for me, in front of your own hall. I let that sit a moment, the way you let a held breath sit. You might ask yourself why you were in such a hurry to call it a lie before anyone had said it was true. That landed. I saw it land." A few of the servants exchanged a look, and Ingrid's smile thinned, and she did the thing that frightened people do when a quiet voice has more weight than a loud one. She reached for power instead of words. "Take her to the south cells," she told her guards. "She is not to see him. She is not to be alone with the physicians. And send for my father." Her eyes came back to me, and there was nothing winter about them now. There was only a woman who had bet her whole life on a throne and would not be unseated by a healer in a borrowed cloak. "You will lose the child to the cell damp before any court hears a word of your story. These things happen. Marshes are unhealthy. So are dungeons." That was the first move. I want you to mark it, because it nearly worked. 3 days in a cold cell, the weight under my ribs gone still and frightened, and no one allowed near me but a guard, who would not meet my eyes. She did not need to put a knife in me. She only needed to wait, and let the stones do it, and call it the will of the gods. What she did not count on was Gunnar, who had spent 30 years learning every passage in that keep, and who came in the third night through a servant's stair with a key he should not have had, and the king's wolf half carried on his shoulder. I have to tell you about the wolf, because the wolf is the truest thing in this whole story, and the part the new songs still cannot get right. He came through that low door on 3 working legs, the great black wolf of the Iron Territories, and he was a ruin. Ribs like a cage with the bird half gone, the fur gone dull, the eyes gone dim. The marking sickness had eaten him down to almost nothing. Gunnar had not led him to me. You cannot lead a dying wolf anywhere. The wolf had felt me come back inside the walls and had torn himself off his deathbed and dragged his own wreckage down 3 flights of stair to the cell where his bond was sitting in the dark. Because that is what the bond is, that is the fact of it. It does not consult the hierarchy, and it does not consult the dying. And then he scented the child. I will never forget it as long as I live. He got to the bars and he smelled me, his bond, alive, and his ruined body shuddered with the relief of it, and then his head dropped, and his nose found the low weight under my ribs. The air, his air, the pup he did not know existed. And the sound that came out of that dying wolf was not a sound a wolf makes. It was the sound a man makes. He pressed his great ravaged head to the bars between us, and he keened, low and broken, over the child he had nearly lost twice, without ever once being told it was his to lose. His wolf knew before he did. The wolf always knows first. I had a hand through the bars in his fur, and I was telling him, I know, I am here, and somewhere up above us in that keep, behind Ingrid's locked door. The man was surfacing out of 3 months of dying, because his wolf had found the one thing worth coming back for. Gunnar got the cell open. He got me up the servant's stair with the wolf leaning his whole failing weight against me, the way the orphan pup used to lean against my threshold. And in the king's chambers, in the grey before dawn, Sorin came back into his own skin for the first time in weeks, and looked at me across a room for the first time since the dais, and let himself, finally, "Look, you're real," he said. His voice was a ruin too. The bond kept telling me you were inside the walls, and I thought it was the dying. They do that. At the end. They tell you the thing you want. His eyes went down, the way Gunnar's had, the way Ingrid's had, and stopped, and something in his wrecked face simply broke open. Maren, what is that? Yours. I did not look away from him. Since before the ceremony. I came up the tower stair that morning to tell you. I walked into your bells instead. I have seen men take wounds that should have killed them and make less sound than Sorin made then. He crossed the room, and he went down, not toward me, not to embrace me. He had not the right, and he knew he had not the right. He went down on his knees in front of the low weight of his child, and he pressed his forehead against it, and he wept. This man, the most powerful wolf alive. On his knees on his own floor, undone by the proof that the night he chose to lose everything he had also, without knowing it, lost more than he could count. I would not have let you go, he said into the impossible fact of his heir. If I had known, Maren, I would have burned the hollow reach to the waterline before I let you walk south carrying. I thought I was saving one life. I have spent 3 months telling myself I saved one life so that I could bear the rest of it. I know. And here is the thing I had decided across 3 days of horse and 3 nights of cell. Gunnar told me what Halston did. I know you marked her to keep the knife off my back. I am not going to pretend that the knowing fixes it, because it does not. You decided my safety without me, the same as everyone has always decided everything about me. And I have spent 3 months learning to decide things for myself, and I find I have a taste for it now. I crouched down, which was no small feat in my condition, until he had to look at me. But I did not ride here to forgive you, Sorin. I rode here because there is a woman wearing your mark who is going to try to kill our child to keep her throne, and I will be very honest with you. I am no longer willing to be quiet about anything at all. Something came back into his eyes then that the sickness had taken. Down in the wreck of him, the wolf lifted its head. No, he almost smiled. I don't imagine you are. We did not have long, and we both knew it. Ingrid would find the cell empty by the morning bell, and she had already sent for her father, and Lord Halston would arrive with the only army that mattered, and a daughter who needed the king dead before the truth could stand up in a full hall. Our whole chance was the gap between dawn and the eastern banners on the road. So we did the only thing left to do. We called the packs. It is the king's oldest right, and his most dangerous. The open court. The horn that summons every wolf within a day's ride to stand witness, that no lunar and no lord can refuse to attend without confessing they have something to hide. Sorin had not the strength to stand through it. He stood through it anyway, on Gunnar's arm and then on his own, because a king who is carried to his own throne has already lost it, and we needed him to last 1 hour upright. The hall filled. Every banner, every high seat, the servants packed at the back where I had once stood in grey, and at the front this time, where they do not put people like me, stood the healer, heavy with the air, with the king's ruined wolf pressed to her side, and refusing to leave it. Ingrid came in white and silver and fury, her father's outriders already at the gates, and she did not wait to be accused. The frightened reach for power first. I have told you that. My king is ill and not himself, she announced, and this woman has bewitched a dying man into a fever dream. I am his marked mate before all of you. I carry the only lawful claim to this throne, and I will not have it bled by a marsh witch and her bastard. She turned to her own guards, smooth as ice over a deep place. The challenge of mating right is mine to call, and I call it. Let the gods decide it in blood, as the law allows, her champion against mine. Here, now, she smiled, because she had the only trained warriors in the room, and I had a dying wolf and a swordless king. Unless the witch would rather spare us all and admit the child is no king's. And that was the second move, and it was the clever one, and it very nearly took everything, because she was right about the law. The challenge of mating right is real and old, and it is settled in blood, and I had no champion who could stand. Soren could not lift a blade. Gunnar would die for me and lose. I watched the hall do the arithmetic and arrive again at the answer that cost them the least. Better the marsh witch than a war with the hollow reach, and I felt the whole room begin to slide toward her like water finding the low ground. So I broke my silence. All of it. 3 months of it. At once. I will not give you a champion. I pitched it to the whole hall, in the voice I had spent 3 months using to call frightened children back from fevers, the one that carries precisely because it does not shout. Because this is not settled in blood. It is settled in truth, and the truth is standing right here, and the only reason you are all reaching for your swords is so that you do not have to look at it. I stepped out from the wolf's side into the open floor. Lady Ingrid carries a mark. I turned so the whole hall had my face. She does not carry a bond. Every wolf in this hall can smell the difference if you make yourselves do it. The mark sits upon her, and the bond is not beneath it. Because you cannot lay a true bond over a false one, and the proof of that is the thing dying on this dice. Look at your king. He is not ill. He is bleeding to death from a bond that was walked away from at that woman's father's command. And his wolf has spent 3 months crawling toward the only mate it has ever had. And it found her, and it found this. I put both hands on the weight of my child, in front of all of them, his heir. Conceived before your ceremony. Carried south in silence, so that this woman could not put it in a cell to die of the damp, which she tried to do 3 nights ago. Ask her guards, ask the south cells. The stones remember. The hall had gone utterly still. Ingrid's smile was gone. You want the gods to decide it in blood. Quietly now. Just to her. The way you say the thing that ends it. Then let them. Let your king do the one thing a bewitched man could never do. And a bonded one cannot survive. Let him reject your mark in front of every pack here. And if I am the witch you say I am, the gods will let it kill him, and you will have your throne over both our bodies, and no one will ever question your right again. I held her eyes. Or it will not kill him. Because it was never real. Choose, my lady. You called for the gods. Here they are. She could not answer fast enough. I have learned that this is the whole of it. In the end, the guilty cannot answer fast enough. And a hall full of wolves hears the silence where the truth should be. And Soren, gods keep him, did not wait for her to find her tongue. He reached up to the mark on his own throat, the binding he had taken to save my life, the thing that was killing him, and he spoke the words of repudiation that no alpha says lightly. Because to break a mark while your wolf is this far gone is very likely to finish what the marking started. Gunnar made a sound and started forward. I did not. I had asked him to do it. I would not flinch from the watching. He looked at me the whole time, not at her, and he tore the false thing off his own soul in front of his entire kingdom, and the cost of it was real. and it was visible, and it was terrible. He went white, then grey, the bond sickness surging up to take its last payment. And his legs went, and the great wolf inside him gave one last failing shudder as the lie came away, and there was nothing underneath to hold him up. He started to fall. The hall gasped as one creature. Ingrid's face was already turning to triumph, because a dead king is still a throne won, and I caught him. I am not a large woman, and I was heavy with child, and I should not have been able to take his weight, and I took it anyway, down onto my knees on the cold stone with the king of the Iron Territories failing in my arms, and I did the thing only I could do. The thing I had carried south and carried back. The choice that had always been mine and only mine to make. I accepted the bond. I had refused it for 3 months. Held it shut with both hands the way I had held my grief shut at that ceremony. And now, on the floor of his hall, I let it open. I chose him, freely, in the full sight of everyone, the way he had never been allowed to choose me, and the true bond that Halstan's threat, and Ingrid's mark, and my own 3 months of silence had all tried to bury, came up out of the dark like the floor of a frozen river giving way. And it caught his falling wolf the way I had caught his falling body. And it held. The cost came for me, the way the old magic always comes for whoever opens the door. It drove through me like the marsh winter all at once, cold to the centre of my bones, the whole crushing weight of 3 months of denied bond arriving in one breath, and for a moment I could not find air, and I felt the child go very still and frightened inside me. I gripped his hand until my nails opened my own palm, and the blood was warm where the cold was not. I did not let go. I had decided in a cell that I was done being left and done leaving, and that included leaving him here on this floor. And so I set my will against the cold, the way I set it against a fever that wants a child, and I endured it, and I would not let either of them go. Not the king, not the heir. And slowly, slowly, the river held, and the warmth came up under the cold, and his wolf, that had been bleeding out for 3 months, took its first whole breath in my arms. Colour came back into his face. His hand closed around mine, alive, and the first thing the King of the Iron Territories did, returned from the dead with his true bond blazing in him for the whole hall to feel, was lift his head and say my name. Out loud, in the front of the hall, where they do not put people like me. The name he had rationed in the dark for 4 months, the word he had never once let anyone else hear. He said it now to everyone, so that there could never again be any question whose I was and who was mine. Marin, he said. And then, to all of them, in a voice that had its iron back, my mate, my true bond, and the child she carries is my heir, conceived before any ceremony, and I will hear the throat of any wolf in this hall who says otherwise. No one said otherwise. Lord Halstan's banners reached the gate within the hour, and found a hall already turned, a daughter already exposed, and a king upright on his own 2 feet with a bond in him that every wolf present had felt catch fire. There was no war in it for him after that. A lord does not march on a king the gods have so plainly answered, not without his own packs deserting on the road. He gave his daughter up, rather than burn for her. Ingrid was stripped of the mark she had stolen and the rank she had bought, and sent back to the hollow reach in a plain cart, which she will tell you is a mercy, and which I will tell you was simply Soren refusing to give the new songs a grave to sing about. Her father kept his head and lost his leverage, which for a man like Halstan is the worse of the two. As for the kiss, for I know that is the one thing the songs are coy about, and you have come a long way with me. So I will tell you the truth of it, which is smaller and larger than they make it. It came days later, when he could stand on his own, and I had the warmth back in my bones, and it was not in any hall. It was at the north window, where he had lit the lamp again, and he stopped halfway through some careful, prepared king's apology and gave up on being careful for the first time in his life. And what broke open in me was not relief, and not even forgiveness. It was the simple, level certainty that I would never again have to wonder whether I had been chosen. I had felt him choose me in front of his whole kingdom while it cost him his life. There was nothing left to wonder about. That was the whole of the kiss. It was enough. It was everything. Here is how it is now, since you have stayed with me to the end of it, and I think you have earned the end of it. The heir came in the spring, a daughter, which scandalized the old lords who wanted a son, and delighted me for exactly that reason. She has her father's grave dark eyes and the gods help us all. My mouth. Which means she has already informed 2 separate visiting dignitaries of things they did not wish to know about themselves. Soren holds her in the great hall in front of everyone, every day, without dignity and without apology. A king who spent his whole life learning that loving anyone openly was a target painted on their back, now refusing to love anything in secret ever again. His wolf, recovered, whole, ridiculous, sleeps across the nursery threshold every night like a guard dog, like an orphan pup once slept across mine. She is here too, the marsh child. I sent for her the week we were bonded. She informed the king of the Iron Territories within an hour of arriving that the baby was hers to mind, as agreed, and Soren, who has learned a great deal about who actually holds power in his keep, said yes, of course, and meant it. She minds the heir. The heir adores her. They are going to be a menace to this entire kingdom, and I could not be prouder. The lamp burns in the north window every night. It means something different now than it did when I first asked him. It used to mean so the dark has somewhere to stop. He told me, finally, what the dark was, a brother lost young, in a war fought over this same throne. The loss that taught him a king's heart is a blade pointed at whoever holds it. He kept the lamp for the brother. He put it out the night he gave me up. He lit it again the night I caught him falling. Now it is not for the dead at all. Now it is just a light left burning in a window, every night, so that anyone walking south in the dark in a borrowed grey cloak would know, this time, exactly where to come back to. People ask me whether I forgave him. They always want it tied up neat. I tell them forgiveness was never the question. He did a terrible, loving, arrogant thing to keep me alive. And I did a terrible, brave, lonely thing to keep our child alive. And the truth is, we were both trying to protect the same future, in the same wrong way. In silence, alone, when we should have been doing it together out loud. We do it out loud now. That is the only forgiveness that ever meant anything. So tell me, and I do want to know, because the hall is quiet tonight and the lamp is lit, and there are 2 children asleep down the corridor who are going to wake me at dawn. Did you see it coming? Did you know, when he marked her on that dice, that he was the one losing everything? Or did you believe, the way I believed, that he had simply chosen the crown, and how long did it take you to forgive him, once you knew? Tell me where you are listening from tonight, and tell me whether you would have stayed silent or spoken, because I have a wager going with a sleeping king about which kind of woman finds her way to this side of a story. And if a girl who walked out in silence and came back loud enough to turn a whole hall is a thing you would like to hear more of, then stay, light a lamp, follow along. There is more of this kingdom to put right, and I find I am no longer willing to be quiet about any of it.